So what, I'm wearing my guest name on my shirt. So what? Because I stand with Schiff and I say, good morning, Chairman Adam Schiff. Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I love you more than ever because can I just say, I don't know how you are you and get up with the amount of corruption and criminality and law breaking that just is piling up on a daily basis. And you're a human dealing with things. And your daughter will probably be president one day, but she could also be a hairdresser because I saw the haircut she gave you and it looks fantastic.
Well, yes. It was a little nerve-wracking, though, to have your new college graduate daughter cutting your hair while drinking Moscow Mules.
Hey now.
That's awesome.
See, he's a human dealing with
right.
quarantine like all of us.
Yes.
Chairman, now, I don't mean to jump ahead, but when President Biden makes you Attorney General Schiff, will the first thing you do, what would be the first thing you would do? I mean, just yesterday, you can't shut down Congress, right? He can't adjourn Congress. He can't cut off funding to who? That is the same thing that got him impeached for the Ukraine, right? Holding up funding that is not his to hold up. Just where do you start, Attorney General, future Attorney General Schiff?
Well, I've never gotten a question quite framed that way before.
I need things to hope for.
In all seriousness about the Justice Department, I think someone is going to have to restore the independence of the Justice Department, its integrity.
Yes.
Bill Barr has done more damage to that department, I think, than anyone in memory. And I spent almost 6 wonderful years in that department. And I venerate the work that the men and women do there. But to see Bill Barr applaud the firing of the Inspector General for following the law, to see his Office of Legal Counsel, which is supposed to be a quasi-independent legal body giving advice to government agencies, become essentially a phony legal paper mill for the president, to see him engage in political investigations and potential political prosecutions, and disagree with the conclusion of the Inspector General of his own department, who truly is independent, about the properly predicated beginnings of the Russia investigation. I mean, he is really the most political and partisan hack that has ever occupied that office, and it's doing enormous destruction.
It's things like playing this campaign video with taxpayer money in a White House press briefing. But we don't have an operating Justice Department. It's funny you brought up the IG. I mean, I literally was thinking, I need to get a stack together for chairmanship. It's the whole stack. So they just missed the deadline to explain the firing of IG Atkinson, right? Because they don't obey any laws, right, or any deadlines.
They don't, and another deadline that was missed, and the administration has basically said we're not going to comply, is the administration, the Defense Department awarded a massive $10 billion contract to Amazon's competitor.
Oh, that's in my stack. That's in my stack. Go ahead.
It is. Well, there's, of course, an oversight being done to determine, was that because the president was insisting on not giving a major contract to Jeff Bezos, publisher of the Washington Post, who's also CEO of Amazon. And the administration said, we're not going to comply. We're not going to provide that information.
Well, the same thing. The same thing they did to you in impeachment. They ordered them not to speak about
exactly the same thing, and very potentially for the same general reason, which is to hide the misconduct and corruption of the administration. You see it in contracting, and this is, of course, why the president also got rid of the Inspector General overseeing the pandemic relief funds, which he views basically as his corporate slush fund to use as he pleases. But that was not the intent of Congress. That's not what the American people need or want or deserve right now.
So here we are again. Let's just focus on one at a time. The White House refusing to give Congress a reason for firing Intelligence Community Inspector General Michael Atkinson as required by law. And this was bipartisan. A group of 8 senators, including Chuck Grassley, wanted, and of course we know the explanation because he was the Ukraine whistleblower, right? But but then you ask why so many months later. What else was he? Was this now to do with the coronavirus response that, he's firing all the, as you say, all the IGs and any kind of oversight?
Look, I think that he has probably wanted to fire Atkinson since Atkinson informed Congress that there was a whistleblower complaint being illegally withheld from Congress. but was waiting for the right opportunity when the country was focused on something else like a pandemic. But also, I think he wanted to essentially gut the Inspector General system more or less in one fell swoop. And so he removed several Inspector Generals, criticized others all at the same time, a full and frontal attack on independent oversight within the federal government.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's get to from Politico. The GAO concluded Trump broke the law when he paused hundreds of millions of dollars in critical military aid to Ukraine last summer. Democrats say Trump is breaking the law again with the hold on WHO funding. Once again, Nancy Pelosi said Trump's decision is dangerous, illegal, and will be swiftly challenged. So can you tell us about that, or what can be done and when?
Well, there's so much wrong with what the president has done with respect to WHO. First of all, the administration left open America's seat on the executive board of the WHO and then complains that the U.S. doesn't have enough influence on the WHO. It shows, once again, the inconsistency, the incompetence of this administration. But WHO was warning about this virus, as was the CDC, as was the President's own National Security Council, epidemiologists and health experts, and he ignored their warnings. He continued to talk down the risk of this virus, saying it was going to be nothing more than the flu. They had it under control. It was nothing to worry about. We were going to come through it just great. And the reality is, of course, we now have more COVID cases in the United States than any other nation on earth, more fatalities as a result of the virus and the incompetence of this administration than any nation on earth. And so what does this president, who said, "I take no responsibility," do? He seeks to cast blame on the WHO, as if you could ascribe all of the administration's failings to the WHO. But it's a twofer for Donald Trump. He gets to deflect, and he gets to do what conservatives love to do, which are bash international institutions. But this particular institution, although not perfect like any other, right now is needed for the whole world to confront this virus.
Yeah.
And when this virus gets to some of the poorer parts of the world, densely populated places, then it could have a catastrophic effect, far larger than what we're seeing in the United States. And you need international health organizations like the WHO. It is not the right time to be defunding them for a political purpose.
Chairman, it must just... I can't imagine being you, because it really is, as I say all the time, it becomes all one story, right? As the chairman of the Intelligence Committee in particular, I mean, I believe Putin over our intelligence agencies, and now we're seeing another version of this. You know, I believe these crazy conspiracy theories in Russia about Ukraine because it helps me. Now we're at something that is literally life and death on a massive scale, that he didn't listen to our intelligence agency. He's the one that applauded China, applauded their transparency, believed them over our intelligence agencies. And I've had this conversation with Glenn Kirshner and a lot of our legal experts about to what degree is this going to be criminally negligent homicide? I mean, I know I'm not a legal scholar like you are, but I don't know. You know, Glenn talks about a Trump Crimes Commission when, you know, hopefully when this all, hopefully in January. But I mean, I just, you know, we've talked about my dad and the Nuremberg trials, but I just, I feel like, don't you feel like the amount of crime and corruption we're going to find out in history is going to record about the Trump administration to be staggering?
I certainly think that we have probably only seen a very small portion of the misconduct and potential criminality of this president. And I remember during the trial when the question came up, okay, if we find him guilty, essentially, do we really need to remove him from office? And I asked the rhetorical question, how much damage could Donald Trump do in the next 9 months before the election? And then answered the question by saying a lot. But frankly, we had no idea just what kind of damage and loss of life would be accompanied by this incompetent, narcissistic president who thinks it's still all about him, that he's got to potentially delay relief checks, stimulus checks to people because he wants his name embroidered on each check. I mean, that kind of vanity is so dangerous right now. But you're absolutely right, Stephanie. He's complaining that the WHO wasn't holding China to account sufficiently. And I think there's merit to the fact that WHO was too ready to accept Chinese representations. But then so was Donald Trump.
Yeah,
as you point
even
out,
more
Donald
so.
Trump,
Yeah.
even more so, complimenting Xi on his transparency and saying what a great job they were doing. I think one of the things that the president has difficulty dealing with, and it's been a terrible tragedy for the American people, but brought about by his incompetence, is the fact that there are far fewer infections and death in China as a result of this virus than in America right now.
Yeah, and I think South Korea even more instructive in that our case is diagnosed on the exact same day, and they've had a couple hundred deaths. I mean, it is very clear what you need to do to deal with this and to stop it, and we're not doing it, and in fact, it's getting worse. Our testing is going down, and even business leaders, his business leader buddies are telling him we need more testing to be able to reopen businesses in America. I often, you mentioned, I often think of, it wasn't even that long ago that you were standing on the floor of the Senate. I mean, I don't know if you need extra money, but you could open a psychic business there in your little alcove office, because you said it. It must be eerie to you to just you cannot count on Donald Trump to do what's right for America. He will do what's right for Donald Trump, and all of the things you warned about are coming really tragically true. And you couldn't even have foreseen this, right?
Well, it was, I think, pretty clear to most Americans by the time we got to the trial, in fact, probably years earlier, that no one is going to change this president. No one's going to change the fact that he only sees the world through the prism of what's good for him. And being president as an opportunity to enrich himself and aggrandize himself, it's all about him. And there's no, I think, worse personality you could have during a pandemic than someone who still thinks that this crisis, which is causing such misery and death and economic hardship, is somehow about Donald Trump, except in the sense that so much of it was unnecessary, but a result of his inability to lead right now. But it just highlights the need to have people of competence and character and integrity in the Oval Office, and that gets us back to where we started the conversation with why we need to make sure that Joe Biden becomes our president in November.
Yeah, I mean, you were mean enough to quote President Obama just to rub salt in the wound, Chairman. You said in 2014, he said we have to put in place an infrastructure to see it quickly, isolate it quickly, respond to it quickly. Right after the Ebola crisis, he said that. And you said it's clear we need an after-action review to determine why we weren't ready. That's the problem. This wasn't an intelligence failure, as you as chairman of the Intelligence Committee knows. He didn't listen to the intelligence. This was not so clearly we need a commission. But can I also ask you, just because we've talked about impeachment and whatever, and you mentioned Bill Barr, you've seen this story. In a series of conversations last September, senior DOJ officials worked with representatives of the Australian government to hammer out an arrangement to win a release of the Australian bloggers imprisoned in Tehran. At the same time, though, Bill Barr and his lieutenants were speaking to Australians about their help in looking into the origins of the Bob Mueller investigation. I mean, I don't even know. Again, I don't know where you start, future Attorney General Schiff, but it's all becoming one story of just corruption and self-dealing, isn't it?
It is. We built a wall, and we thought it was an impregnable wall between the White House and the Department of Justice after Watergate, where the White House didn't interfere in specific cases. That wall has been completely broken down to the point where, as you point out, you have Bill Barr out there promoting these Russia conspiracy theories that there was nothing there, that it was really Ukraine. I mean, it's really breathtaking. You have him undermining the work of his own people, his own inspector general. You have him supporting the president and trying to get sentence reductions for cronies that came to Congress and lied to us about the president's misconduct. We are so far afield now from that post-Watergate norm. I have to say I grieve for my colleagues at the Justice Department that have to serve under such terrible leadership and still continue to try to do the jobs every day around the country. But the effect of Bill Barr politicizing the leadership at the department is that those prosecutors are doing their job around the country, and those people who work for the FBI, men and women at the FBI, who are testifying in courts around the country, now have juries wondering whether they can really trust these folks because Donald Trump says they're part of some deep state apparatus, or on the other side, because Bill Barr has so politicized the department that it causes jurors to wonder, are the prosecutions in front of them being brought for some political reason? So he's just done incalculable damage.
Yeah.
But I always come back, Stephanie, to the expression of fish rots from the head. And, here that character flaw in the president, you see manifest in the Justice Department. You see it tragically now in the intelligence community with Richard Grinnell, who has no experience in intelligence, running the entire agency. It's affecting, of course, the intelligence that we're able to get now on foreign interference in our next election.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bill Barr, apparently a health expert now, saying we should all get back to work. And by the way, thank you, because you're all over it on Twitter, just all of it about how important the post office is, about, you said there's no reopening without a plan to get the virus under control. You said Trump's false claims of absolute power are alarming, of course, but his failure to scale up testing is unforgivable and deadly. His power isn't absolute, but his incompetence is. We keep asking every day, where are the tests? And at this point, is it deliberate that he's keeping this testing down that is going provably down, not up? As he's talking about, as this breaks this morning, CDC and FEMA drawing up plans to lift lockdown by May.
Stephanie, I think the problem is that when you lose weeks and months, as this administration did, you don't get them back. It really snowballs the problem. Had we developed the test early on, had we been willing to use the WHO's own test, which did work when ours didn't, had we acquired the reagents, the swabs, the gear, everything else that we needed, we would be prepared right now. We would have been able to contain or mitigate this outbreak. But once the outbreak gets away from you, once you get behind in securing these materials, then you're in a worldwide competition. And if you don't have leadership at the federal level, you not only lose that worldwide competition, but also you have state-to-state competition, governors competing with each other, getting outbid by the federal government.
We're way long as usual, but thank you for on Twitter, just in general, speaking out for the post office, talking about, by the way, you said 16 million people have filed for unemployment. Millions of businesses are on the brink. It's time to think big. That's why I support Representative Jayapal's paycheck guarantee. The government should cover all business payroll for 3 months or more. We need to keep people in their jobs. So thanks for what must be an exhausting time for you professionally and personally to keep just fighting for us.
Well, can I just say on that Jayapal bill, and this is a concept I've supported for a long time. We're experiencing obviously phenomenal demand among small businesses for these loans. But
hi, I'm one of them, and you're my personal congressman, and I can't get one. I don't know if there's somebody I could see about that.
We'd be happy to try to help. But we should go big. Businesses large and small should essentially be able to get payroll guaranteed by the federal government right now, like the British are doing, like the Swedes, the Norwegians, and others are doing. It's much simpler. It could be done through the IRS instead of through banks and the SBA. And it wouldn't allow the president to pick winners and losers. It wouldn't allow banks to do what they're probably doing to you, Stephanie, which is you're not their best customer.
I know. And do you know how many times I've dropped your name? I mean, it's really embarrassing.
I was on the phone yesterday with nonprofits from all over Los Angeles who are having the same problem that you are. Yeah. They're serving some of the neediest people right now, but they're not the bank's best customers, the most lucrative customers.
I know.
So they go to the back of the line.
That's right. We are way long, but let me just say, not only did your daughter give you a fantastic haircut, it makes your neck look even better than usual. See you next time, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman.